Hey everybody, welcome back to Corona Chat. Today is Tuesday, April 21st, and today's video is a little more general, but I wanted to talk a little bit about how coronavirus is changing some of the ways that science is being done right now and how results are being reported, and what that specifically means for all of us trying to make sense of the news of every new discovery. Right, so one of the exciting things that's happening right now is that scientists all over the world are collaborating now more than ever. They're sharing their data, their models, their hypotheses about what might be happening, and they're doing so in a way that's far more open than normal. Often, science is a very secretive and competitive process, with individual laboratories guarding their ideas very carefully until a paper has been through the peer review process and published. But now we're seeing many more scientists publishing their preliminary work, and you can think of this as a very polished first draft. And they're publishing those through preprint services like medRxiv while waiting for the manuscripts to work their way through the peer review. So the peer review process is very important, but it's a somewhat slow step in the process of generating scientific evidence. Right? So in peer review, the polished draft manuscript that explains what the scientists did and the results they found is shared with other scientists who are experts in the subject matter and the type of research methodology used in the study. And these peer scientists read the draft manuscript very closely, looking for potential problems with the way the study was conducted, whether the methodology used was the correct one, whether the right controls were in place, and just generally evaluating the rigor of the findings. They also read through the discussion of what the findings mean and how they should be applied to the real world beyond the study. So peer reviewers typically find issues with that first draft, no matter how polished it is, and send feedback back to the original authors. And the authors then have to go back through this feedback and revise the paper if they want it to be published. And when they submit that second draft back to the journal, they have to include the original version, the revised draft, and a point-by-point explanation of how they addressed all of the feedback in this new draft, or why they disagree with the points made by the reviewers. And this kind of goes back to the reviewers to look and make sure that their concerns were addressed. And this back and forth process can go for many rounds, which is part of why peer review publications take so long to come out. The peer review process often takes months, and in some fields it can take years. And this means that it can take a very long time to get information about new discoveries. The good thing about this process, though, is that it helps to weed out a lot of manuscripts that were based on flawed science, that used sample sizes that were too small to be meaningful, or that made conclusions that weren't actually supported by what was shown in the data. The system doesn't work perfectly, but it catches a lot. Scientists publishing more of their work in preprints means that we get new information much faster, but it also means that this information that's getting put into the public domain hasn't yet been vetted. Now, some preprints are very good, but there can be things published as preprints that aren't actually rigorous enough to get through the peer review process, so they would never be published in a peer-reviewed journal. There may also be things uploaded to preprint that are misleading or just plain wrong. So we have to read preprints with a critical eye. Again, this doesn't mean that preprints are bad. It just means that we need to take the findings that are presented in them with a grain of salt. So tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about tips that you can use to help identify when you might want to take these study sendings with a grain of salt. But in the meantime, your good news for today is that it was just announced that Maryland has received a shipment of 500,000 coronavirus tests from South Korea that was arranged by the First Lady of Maryland, Yumi Hogan. Yumi Hogan is a South Korean immigrant, obviously married to Governor Hogan of Maryland. And because she speaks Korean and has contacts in South Korea, was able to negotiate with manufacturers there to get them to ship those tests to Maryland. And we're seeing South Korea actually send test kits and other materials to lots of other countries around the world, in part because they have the manufacturing capability and to create these tests, and also because the epidemic has not been anywhere near as severe in South Korea, so they're able to send resources to other countries. So this is a great example of the kind of ways that countries can pull together and collaborate in the face of the coronavirus or COVID-19 pandemic. So I'll see you all here back tomorrow to talk a little bit about some of these tips for making sense of preprints and scientific studies in general. Until then, remember, we're all in this together. Stay safe, take care of each other,